Omerta, the silence that tells the tale.
Every family has its rituals, a wedding, a baptism, a funeral, but there is one ceremony that was never written down, never photographed, never spoken of outside a locked room. For nearly a century, the American Mafia inducted its new members through a ritual so secretive that the outside world only learned its details when one man broke the silence himself. His name was Joseph Valachi. In 1963, sitting before the United States Senate, he became the first made man in history to describe, in his own words, exactly how a soldier becomes family. Tonight, we tell you what he said, and we show you what it looked like. This is the story of a boy named Marco Ferrara, and the night he stopped being a boy. Marco had been told nothing. That was the first rule, though no one ever said it out loud. You were never told the day, never told the hour. You simply received a summons, and you came, because refusing wasn't a choice anyone had ever survived making. He sat alone in a back room, above a shuttered tailor shop, sweating through his shirt, staring at 3 empty chairs across the table. He didn't know yet who would fill them. The first to arrive was Luca Bellini, the enforcer everyone in the family feared and nobody crossed. He said nothing at first, just studied Marco the way a butcher studies meat. Then, finally, quietly, he told the boy to sit still, stop wiping his hands on his knees, someone would notice. Marco asked who they were. Luca's answer was short: everyone who mattered. Historians and federal investigators, who later corroborated Valachi's testimony, confirmed it wasn't theater. It was theology. Every object placed on that table meant something, and the men entering that room believed, absolutely, that what happened next would follow them into the next life. Don Salvatore Moretti entered next, followed by his consigliere, Antonio Ricci. The Don took the head of the table without a word. On the wood in front of him, a revolver, a knife, and a small paper image of a saint. According to Valachi's account, a gun and a knife were placed before every inductee. The meaning was never explained aloud. It didn't need to be.
You see, in those days, we didn't ask questions. We just did what had to be done. It was a matter of loyalty, pure and simple.
Live by these, and if the day came, you would die by them too. The Don asked Marco if he knew why he was there. Marco answered quietly. He didn't. The Don said that was the only honest answer anyone had ever given him in that chair. Then came the naming of the sponsor, the made man who vouched for the boy with his own life as collateral. Don Moretti told Marco plainly Luca had stood for him. Luca's word was the only reason Marco was still breathing air in that room. He told the boy to remember that before he remembered his own name. Antonio stepped forward next, holding the small paper image of the saint, usually Saint Michael the Archangel, or in some families, Saint Peter, a candle already burning beside it. He pricked Marco's trigger finger with a needle. A single drop of blood pressed onto the paper. "This is you now," he said. "Your blood on his image." Marco's breath caught. He asked what came next. Antonio told him, "Then you burn." The paper was set alight in Marco's cupped hands. He was made to hold it as it burned and to recite, in his own words, a vow that
if you ever betray the family, its secrets, its blood, your soul will burn exactly as that saint is burning now.
Shaking, Marco said the words, "As this saint burns, so will my soul burn if I betray this family." The ash fell from his fingers onto the table. Silence held the room. There was one line, Valachi said, that every inductee heard before the room emptied. A line that explained, more than any ritual object could, exactly what he had just given away. Don Moretti leaned forward and told him plainly, "From this night on,
this family comes before your blood, before your mother, before your father."
Before his father, before God, if it ever came to that. He asked Marco if he understood what he'd just sworn. Marco barely managed a yes.
"Say it like you mean it.
Yes, Don Moretti. I understand.
Marco answered. Yes, Don Moretti, I understand. The Don rose. The others followed him out. Only Luca stayed behind, watching the boy try to steady his shaking hands. He told Marco his hands had shaken the same way the first time. Marco asked if it ever stopped. Luca was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "No, you just get better at hiding it. That's the whole job, kid. Whether every family performed the ritual exactly this way, we'll never fully know." Omerta made sure of that. But Valachi's testimony remains the closest thing history has to an eyewitness account of a ceremony designed never to be witnessed at all. And somewhere, in a room like this one, a boy became something else entirely. Not because he chose violence, but because silence asked something of him first, and he said yes.
The light fades, but the code remains.